It's Wednesday, August the 18th. This is the King of the Mountain State Show. I'm Chase Hill. My guest tonight's one of the best all-around athletes that I've seen in the boxing game, especially in our area. Over 30 or right at 30 pro fights under his belt. He's trained with some of the best. He's been in the ring with some of the best. Just across the river, grew up in Ironton, the Atom Bomb, Adam Collins.
Hey, Chase, thanks for having me.
Glad you're here, man. One of the things, I've seen over the past few years or so, you had a lengthy career, but before we get into that, tell me a little bit about the other sports. I know softball, baseball was a thing. I think there was a bunch of sports you played through the high school time. What all were you into?
Well, it started out in high school. I ran track, played football, and played baseball in the summer, and then ended up playing baseball, and I ran one cross-country meet. I ended up playing 5 sports in high school.
So with all that different stuff, how do you end up settling on being a fighter? Like, how does that happen?
It's actually a funny story. I met Jeremy Bates in a bar back in January of 2000 at a ring girl competition for the Huntington Tough Man. And I was just hanging out with him one day, and actually everybody in my family is a good golfer but me. And the softball league had shut down. I thought, well, can't golf, so I went to the boxing gym with him one day, and 2 weeks later I was going to fight down in Lexington in an amateur fight.
Yeah, I imagine finding Jeremy in an establishment like that back then was probably a pretty regular occurrence. It
was, and we run around pretty good ways together.
Now, some of the guys that you've trained with, I know Corky Sawyer is a longtime friend of yours and trainer, not just boxing, but, working out and all that kind of stuff. Tell me a little bit about the guys that you've trained with over the years.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I started out with Jeremy, got him Elvis Rice for giving him my first broken nose. I think he's the reason why it's crooked. I was training with Ralph Wild West, Adolfo Washington, of course, got Mike Shepard, Joe Painter, Brian Kamichis, all these guys from Parkersville, David Niemer, Gary Wolf. I mean, just tons of them. Melvin Russell.
Now, Corky's one of my favorite characters. Every time I'm around that guy, I have a good time. You guys came down to the house there in Boone County that time. It was good seeing him. My boy was really little at the time. He enjoyed that. Yeah. How did you meet Corky?
I actually met him through Jeremy. I'd heard his name through the years watching Tough Man. I guess I went to my first Tough Man when I was 18 years old and watched it. And I saw Corky from a distance. He had Ryan McKenzie training at the time. Ryan had one pro fight, but he was a phenomenal Tough Man guy. And he was training Ryan at the time. Ryan was just murdering people. That was my first recollection of ever seeing Corky.
And then you're still, to this day, you guys do some working out and some stuff, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Now, when you were coming up there in that semi-pro stuff, there was a good group of guys. I mean, you mentioned Ryan and Jason Smith and Daniel Hensley was fighting back then and stuff. There was a good group of fighters. Yeah,
the Huntington Tough Man was where I really got my name, and I actually came up through with this because you had guys like Jeremy McGraw and Dennis Sloan worked out the federal prison, and I had Dwayne Porter, who was a Tough Man champion before, Bobby Cook, and there were some good guys. The guy who ended up beating me in the finals that year was Joe Myers. He ended up being 13-1 as a pro. Just some good guys. And of course, I went down to Portsmouth 2 weeks later and won that whole competition down there. But yeah, Huntington was full of good guys back then.
Yeah, that whole tri-state area into the Kentucky, Ohio, that whole area had a bunch of guys.
Yeah, that was Tough Man, huge.
Now, let me ask you this. Before I get into some of the highlights and stuff of what you accomplished, you've seen this game change so much. I mean, you fought pro 14 years. So from the time you got into the pro game to now, how do you see that it's changed as far as the way guys are approaching the fight game?
Well, it's hard to build a record like it used to be. I mean, used to they match you up with whoever coming and going. And you really didn't care. You just went in a fight. But nowadays, you got to have, anybody over 35 has got to have medicals. They got to MRI, brain scan, physicals, blood work. There's so much new stuff that's involved in it. And the guys, I mean, even if you're prepared, guys my age, I'm still in good shape, but I couldn't fight because I can't pay all those medicals. It's just too expensive.
Yeah. And, even when I got into it, you had been fighting for 7-8 years before I ever even got into the fight game. And even when I got in, it was a little bit of the Wild West. There was some stuff that we were able to to do that maybe right now we couldn't. So I can see that. What about the gym there? I mean, do you see guys in the gym regular, loyal, like they were, like it used to be?
No, not at all. It's insane. I mean, I think the last fight I had in Parkersburg was back in 2017. And it was so funny because you could look in the gym, it was me and Mike Shepard, Brian Kamichi, Gary Wolf, David McNeamer, all the old guys. We were the ones still in the gym all these years later. I met Mike in 2001 or 2002. Here it was 15 years later, we're all still the ones in the gym.
One of the things that I noticed is the manner in which these guys spar each other. Like, you guys used to really fight each other. Like, you had to be really good friends in order to train together because you guys were beating the snot out of each other.
Yeah, we would bang. I spar Jeremy all the time. He's a world-class puncher. He just absolutely he rocked me. He's like, my gosh, he's got hits. Back then, now we got guys that don't even want to spar. I mean, some of the matchups I saw the recent show down here was kind of embarrassing. That's why it kind of shocked me. Some of the stuff that goes on nowadays, because like the whole thing's changed, so you can't build a record anymore. But then some of the matchups I've seen recently, I don't know why they didn't allow it to happen.
Well, I guess you're lucky to have a guy like Jeremy Bates, but then not so lucky that Evander Holyfield, I think he wrote in his book something about the hardest guy that ever hit him was Jeremy. That's the guy you get to spar with all the time. So I'm sure that helped make you pretty tough.
It did when I was in the tough man days, because I was all aggressive back then. Aggression was my main thing back then, because I was used to get by Jeremy. So I was going to punch him back just as hard. I was so green. I didn't know how to box. I just knew how to fight.
Right.
I just pumped my heels and fight, because once I learned how to fight, and it was all different after that.
So some of the pro highlights, I mean, there's a couple names out there that you fought that are household names, the BJ Flores, Beidou Jack. I mean, we're watching the Floyd Mayweather or whatever it was, I don't know if it was Tyson or Mayweather, whoever, the big pay-per-view a while back, Beidou Jack, there he is. And I'm telling my brother, we're sitting watching, I'm like, Adam, from down Ironton, whatever, you had fought with our shows and stuff. I said, Adam Collins? He said, yeah. I said, he fought that guy. And what's it? I mean, when you go from a Huntington semi-pro contest to you go to being on the biggest stage and you're fighting these kind of guys, how do you get ready for something like that? Like, what's it like going through that experience, getting on the plane to go out there and fight a guy?
Right. I really didn't know what to expect in some of those shows, because going to Vegas in the nighttime, it's even daytime. It's just so lit up. But I really didn't care back then. I just looked at it as a paid vacation, because I had some stuff happen before the fight that kind of took my mind in different directions. Some personal stuff back home, but kind of lost my way in that fight. But I don't know. I got so used to it. I ended up being a road warrior, because I never turned down a fight. They'd always call me, and I'd always go. And it's just I just didn't care, really.
Well, and when you get out there and you show up and you make weight and you're in shape and you fight hard, everything goes, they want you back. If you go out there and you don't show up, you don't give it everything you got, and that kind of stuff, you don't get those calls again. You kept getting those calls. Right. That says a lot about, being a little bit out of your comfort zone and still going to war banging with these guys.
Right.
Tell me this. So this is kind of one of the cool parts for me. I grew up watching the WWF wrestling, and you had Brutus the Barber Beefcake, all these guys. They all had these nicknames, and the character that they built. One of the guys that was my best friend for years, he fought an amateur fight. I've got his shirt on right now. Is Brian Mallory. His nickname was the Irish Car Bomb. He's got red hair and stuff.
I was at that fight, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was a good one. And in Boone County, my favorite fight name of all time, we had a guy, his name was Davy Rowe, and he was bad to the bone. Like, he was an awesome guy.
Death Row,
yeah, Davy Death Row, man. And it was like,
I saw him fight at the Huntington Fieldhouse.
Yeah, I think that might have actually been his last pro fight. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he got upset, and that was the end of it.
And I bring that up because the Atom Bomb, Adam Collins, is a great name. Who came up with that? When did that happen?
I worked in a juvenile correctional facility for about 4.5 years. They had a guy they called Big Rob, Carl Robinson. There was a garbage pail kid named Atom Bomb, too. And he just always screamed that, call me Atom Bomb all the time. And then my first amateur fight, I never really paid attention. My first amateur fight, I didn't have a name. And then I threw just a bunch of haymakers. Actually blew my shoulder out and It was my second name. I blew my shoulder out and had no surgery on it, but I was just throwing bombs. It had a bomb. It just kind of stuck after that.
That's a great one. I mean, that is a calling card fight name. Now, in boxing is a little bit different. Some sports where guys sometimes they step away for a little bit, then they end up back in the ring. Maybe they step away again. Different things come up where it's you know, they're in, they're out. At this point in your career, are you pretty safe, pretty confident saying that's it? You're retired now.
Yeah, I'm done. That's just, you know, there's a couple of guys that talk back and forth about maybe doing like an exhibition, just on some show, just kind of help out the show and do an exhibition. But I don't have the body or the desire to run and put the miles in anymore. It just broke my body down.
I saw you working some. Yeah, I saw you working some corners here recently. Maybe Jonah Kogar, I think that's who it was.
It was Chris Brammer.
Oh, Chris Brammer.
I work with the Hansall brothers, and I work with Chris Brammer and Bill Yates.
That's right. So tell me how that is now that you've got so much experience in the ring. You get with these guys and you're watching it, and then you're in the corner with them, helping them make some adjustments, that kind of stuff. You're enjoying that part of the fight game now?
Oh, I love it. I learned how to tape hands a couple of years ago from Steve Neal. And I've just kind of been working my way through that. And the guys really like the way I tape hands. That's kind of how I work my way into being in corners. But I started working corners with Jeremy and Corky because I was just, instead of Corky paying someone else to work the corner, I was just always there. So I just always worked Jeremy's corners. I learned how to work corners years ago. And all the years through the fighting and learning the sport and learning boxing, I actually learned I knew how to work corners, but now just watching them picking out stuff. And I think Melvin and Travis and those guys could tell you that I pick out stuff during the fight. I can actually watch who they're fighting and pick out stuff and say, listen, hey, try this. And it works. Melvin actually scored a huge knockout off some stuff I was watching in the fight. So listen, when I say now, I'm sure throw this punch. He did and dropped the guy.
Yeah. And a lot of coaches maybe don't have quite as much experience as you do actually in the ring. So I feel like that's always a big asset to have, where you've been in those situations where maybe there's a few rounds left and you're behind in the cards and you know what it's like and you're coaching the guy up. So I imagine you've seen a lot of these scenarios and you can kind of pass that stuff along to the guys.
Yeah, this last show I worked, Chris Brammer fought for Kentucky State title. And I've been there 1,000 times. And much like early in my career, I worked corners with Corky. He had a young boy working his corner, not his coach, just had a young boy working his corner with him. He really didn't know a whole lot about boxing. And the kid's trying to coach, and I saw the look on Chris's face. I knew that he was in trouble. He was out of gas. He was struggling. So at this point, it's not about coaching. It's about getting your mind right and getting us to listen. We got to work our way through this. You're going to be okay, but you can't throw stories. You can't do this. We got to get through it. And I was just trying to get him mentally. There's nothing physically I could tell him at that point on throwing combos because physically he was exhausted. So I had to get him mentally right to just go in there and just work his way through it.
Well, and at some point, like a lot of the fans forget, I forget myself, like it is boxing, it's a sport, there's a science, but at a certain point, it's also a fight, it's easy to lose your cool, lose your emotions in there, and having somebody that's been there to calm them back down. Sometimes it's not as much the X's and the O's and the strategy as it is getting the guy's mind right,
Right. If you're not in there mentally, like I said, you can lose focus real fast. And he was just, his body was exhausted. He said, man, I said, all right, now let's just talk our way through this. You got this the last. He was a college football player. I said, listen, this is the last 3 minutes of your college football career. Let's go ahead and do this. Work our way through it. He did. He ended up winning the fight.
Yeah, and I saw that. That was if he hadn't have dug pretty deep there in the last round, it might have got away from him. So it was good fight and good coaching all around. You mentioned taping hands. So when I got into this stuff and I had some guys and we went to take some money fights, when you get to these things and you're in Tampa, Florida, you're in Austin, Texas, you're in New York, and maybe a couple guys went on the trip and nobody knows how to tape hands. Like that's something that on the outsider, I would assume before I knew anything about boxing that anybody could tape hands. That's not the case. Like if somebody puts together a bad tape job, that can cost you a fight, you know.
It cost you a hand. It could cost you broken bones and everything. Yeah, I've had some really bad tape jobs with kids. I actually got to the point where when Jeremy Bates will confirm this, I was actually in Tampa, Florida, and the commissioner comes in to watch us tape hands, and I'm wrapping tape in my own hands. He says, "What? You taping your own hands?" Well, yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. That's what I'm saying. That was when you guys were doing this. It wasn't, you didn't have 40 coaches and 20 gyms spread out across the state. It was a bunch of cowboys out there kind of in the Wild West figuring things out. I wish that some of the younger guys that are talented that's in it now saw the way you guys had to do it. Because I think they would take it a little bit more serious, a little bit more less for granted. But tell me, another part of your retirement now is you're a commissioner with the ABA, the Appalachian Boxing Association. You get to vote on fights, title fights, approve stuff like that, and attend that, get to see some behind the scenes stuff. You're on there with a group of guys that you're familiar with. What's that been like? Like now always being almost on the other side of the commission. And I know you worked with the state commission there for a while, which was a good, minor league system to get ready for. But what's that like being on the ABA commission? You enjoying that part of it as well? Keep you connected to the fight game?
I do. I enjoy talking with some of the guys. Me and Chris had a little feud there for a while, and it's good being on the commission with him. I haven't met a lot of those guys yet. Haven't seen Chris in years, but just talking to the guys and chatting with them. It's been fun. And
there's a couple big fights coming up. You know, I saw you guys approved Derek Lambert. 5-1 against Zach Kuhn. I believe he's like 12-8. Zach has the belt for the ABA in that weight class. You guys approved Derek to be a title defense for him. The state has approved that for a state title. So there's going to be 2 belts on the line. That'll be October the 16th in Welch. That's going to be a good one. I know as a commissioner, you can't say this is who I think is going to win, but what do you think about that fight? How do you think that goes?
Well, I know that Zach just came out of a camp for a fight here not too long ago, and then Derek just fought recently, correct?
Yeah, he fought July 9th in Bluefield. That was the first time he had fought in like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Derek's an absolute warrior, and he comes to fight every single fight. And I know Zach is trained really well. Scott Kuhn is one of my all-time favorites in boxing. He's refereed a bunch of my fights. I just love Scott to death. But I know Zach always comes to fight too. So Zach's always in shape. So we'll see. I know Derek goes to war and Zach likes to box. So it should be interesting.
You said it perfectly. I mean, that fight is, you got kind of the tough guy that likes to apply the pressure. I grew up a little bit more. His fighting, his amateur background's not the same as Zach's. Zach was pure point system USA boxing, had 150 amateur fights. I really think whoever's best that night ends up winning, so.
Yes, I'll make the matchups and we'll see who decides to take control of it.
Yep, that's right. Now, outside of the ABA, I know you're training some guys. Looks like you're in shape, so you must be staying in the gym and that kind of stuff. Upcoming events, you work with the Hanshaws and Yates. It looks like Yates is really doing some stuff down there. Like, he's making an impact. He might be ready for a title shot pretty soon.
He's really come a long way as a boxer. He was in the MMA when he first started, and he was really. I know he fought a tough man or something years ago. I don't remember him ever fighting tough man. He told me he did, but he's really just come a long way and turned into. He's just one of my favorites to watch. I enjoy working corners with him because he's just so fun to watch. He had a couple of fights in a row where he wasn't himself, and he knew he wasn't himself, and we was giving him a hard time about it. And so this last fight, he went out and said, "Listen, be the Kentucky Brawler. That's your nickname. Be the Brawler. Go up and do your thing." He went out and stopped the guy in like a minute and a half.
Yeah, it didn't last very long. He listened to you.
He dropped down to 175, I believe, again. It's a better weight class for him, but I know he hates the weight. He likes being 205 and he likes being bigger. But 175 is for his height is perfect for him. He's just a daggone strong.
Now, does he work out with Corky and them, or is he in that area?
No, he trains with Phil Clark. Phil Clark's martial arts over in it doesn't now, Ashland.
Right. Now, transitioning into retirement's been one thing for you here recently, as well as transitioning into becoming a policeman. That's I know you corrections, you've always been involved doing that kind of stuff, but tell me, like, what's that like, especially in 2021? You know how everything's going on. There's all these hot topics across the country. We saw the whole defund the police, that type stuff going on. What's it like being out there on the front line in 2021 as a policeman?
Well, the biggest thing is I've noticed with being a police officer, there's cameras everywhere. Everybody's always recording you. But I really haven't changed. Some of the guys that I worked with at the jail, some of the inmates say that I was a respected guy just because I talked to everybody. I talk to them the same way I talk to you. I talk to them the same way I talk to my father. I just say, hey, how you doing? Hey, guys, what's going on? That's how you get to know the guys who understand if they're having a bad day, if they're not having a bad day or whatever. I just BS with everybody. I do the same thing in the police work. I'll stop in super quick. I'll see somebody out in the yard cutting grass or getting the mail. I just pull over and talk to them. Hey, how you doing? I'm Officer Collins. Introduce myself to them. But I work in Green County, Kentucky, and we have some of the best guys to learn from. It's just been so great because they've got guys, they'll hear me on a call, and they'll come, back me up, and I'll hear them on a call, and I'll go back them up. Green County really works together. I've worked with so many good guys between the agencies. We have Russell and Belfont, Flatwoods, because I'm with Raceland. You got Green County Sheriff's Office and the Green City Police.
Now, did you know any of the guys over there before you started that, or was that like a whole new
Well, I did do from when I worked at the jail. I worked at the county jail. At the same time they arrested, they had to bring them to me.
Oh, right.
So I remember a lot of the guys that way, and the guys would come in, they'd see me, and I talked to them, and they would, like I said, talking to an inmate outside the jail, talking to the inmate inside the jail is the same way to me. I just talk to them the same. And I just have guys all the time say, man, why are you in here? Why don't you come out and work the streets with us? And it just happened one day that I applied at one of the places I interviewed, and one of Jeremy Bates' friends caught wind that I'd interviewed at another agency, and asked him to give me his phone. He said, give me a phone number, I'm going to call him. And a week later, I was invited along to this agency and got on.
Well, that's great. I know whenever I saw you take that job, I thought, man, that's a perfect fit right there, because it's not just the fact that you can handle yourself out there on the street or whatever comes up, but I know you and your people skills and the ability to probably diffuse some of these situations before it gets to that point. So to me, I thought when I saw that, I thought, well, that's a good fit right there. Moving forward, I've got an event coming up. We're 10 days away in Huntington. That's not too far from your house. I hope to see you over there, that kind of stuff. We've got a bunch of stuff coming up. I know when I got into this in 2011, the whole group you talked about, Jeremy, yourself, Keith Barr, Mike Shepard, those whole guys that have been in it for a long time.
Yeah, I left out Keith. He's my best friend. Yeah, I love Keith to death.
You know, all those guys were such a valuable resource for me because I wasn't a boxing guy, and you guys knew the game inside and out. You had done things nobody in the state had done, and it was great having you guys to kind of bring me along the way and watch our promotion grow a little bit. But you guys were extremely instrumental with that, and without you, that group of guys, I don't know if we would have made it. So, and you mentioned Scott Kuhn. That's one of the guys that would. I'm from Boone County. He's from Boone County, but you guys definitely had a major impact on where our company's at today and everything, hopefully, that we're able to do moving forward. Yeah, like I said, 10 days away, King of the Mountain State 2 for the heavyweights. We're going to introduce the light heavyweight division. You're familiar with some of the guys in that heavyweight division. What do you see? I mean, who do you think ends up getting the crown put on them when we settle this thing over the next couple months?
I've been, I had the pleasure of working Mike Shepard's show in Parkersburg there a few weeks ago, and I got to see Matt Adams fight, and he was vicious. The dude him and his guy would just beat each other. They were bloody, and it was a fight of the night, and those guys were warriors. So I know that he's got that punching power that he can do some damage if he gets a hold of somebody. Of course, I've been in the gym with Gary Rowland, and Gary's made headway from where he was last year. I know he fought Derek Gibson. Last year, 2 years ago, in the tough man Derek Beatty. But Gary's a different guy, and so Derek has been trained by Gary Wolf now, I believe. So Derek's learned to box a little bit. That's the bad part about 2-minute rounds. You don't have a whole ton of time to box. So you can sit down and fight, you can sit back and try to box, and maybe get outpointed by somebody who's been more aggressive.
Yeah, and the two. the 2-minute rounds thing. I mean, a lot of these guys, even when you begin, was kind of stuck in the 1-minute round thing. Yeah. Getting them to 2, I think, is a nice middle ground to try to help them get ready for the pros. But it's a lonely those 3-minute rounds. When you turn pro and you're not used to 3, I mean, Austin Markham lost his pro debut only because he wasn't used to 3-minute rounds. You know, I've seen that happen to guys. So hopefully that helps. But like you mentioned, Matt Adams, Gary Rowland, some of these guys we're just seeing really for the first time. Jesse Byron is a big, strong guy with the knockout of the night, but he's had a fight or two. So he's not very much experience.
This left-handed guy that Gary's fighting, this Grizzle, I guess I believe his name, he looked pretty good. He's a southpaw, he's awkward. He looked pretty decent. So.
Yeah, and he's got some length. He's a 6'3", 6'4" guy. He's coached by Coach Joe Board. Grizzle and Jesse Byron both are coached by Joe Board. So, those guys are going to show up. They're going to know how to fight and that kind of stuff. Jeremy Browning's back in it. He packs a big punch. We'll see how that goes. But it should be exciting. I look forward after this event. We'll have our Final Four. Whenever we go there for the Zach Kuhn, Derek Lambert fight, we'll narrow it down to the 2 guys, and then we'll be coming back to Huntington for the championship. And there might be a Huntington guy there to fight for it. So it should be pretty exciting. Like I said, man, thanks for everything you all did when I got into this 10 years ago. If it wasn't for you guys, I don't know if this would have ended up being anything like it is now. Moving forward, I'm working with the ABA, doing a bunch of different stuff. I hope that we're able to continue what we've built so far and really grow. For the event coming up in 10 days, tickets are on sale, kingofwv.ticketleap.com. We are going to stream it live. Our buddy Mike Shepard's going to be on the commentary with Scott Kuhn and Don Pennington. That'll be live stream pay-per-view at combatsportsnow.com. As we get closer to the event, I'll be posting links and stuff like that. But man, thanks for sitting down, taking time with me. Living down here in the South now, I don't get up there as much. So I look forward to seeing you here next weekend. Should be a great event, and stay safe out there. And I appreciate everything you guys are doing to keep us all safe.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for putting me on my shows back in the day. I really enjoyed fighting on. There's always good shows.
All right, man. I'll see you pretty shortly. Should be about 10 days or so.
I'll see you.
All right.